This morning we're going to talk about the effort certification process at Cooperative Extension Service. First of all, I want to start with kind of telling you what is effort and what is effort reporting. Effort is the amount of time spent working on a particular activity. In the case of what we're doing here at Cooperative Extension, we're certifying effort on the amount of time we spent working on a sponsored project or a cost share effort, which is a matching fund that you spend time working on. Effort reporting is mandated by granting agencies, specifically federal granting agencies, that effort charged or effort that is cost shared or matched to each award has actually been completed. So what you really have is, here at Cooperative Extension, we complete an e-hire. E-hire shows your distribution of effort across various funds. And that e-hire really sets up how you're budgeted to be paid. So what effort reporting is a mandated method to go back after you actually work that effort and actually confirm that you did work the percent of time that you were budgeted to work on a particular grant or project. Why do we certify effort? Certify effort is a federal requirement. It is a condition of receiving federal funding. So if we agree to accept the federal funds, we have to be compliant to what the federal government requires. So that's why we certify effort. The particular regulations, federal regulations that covers effort reporting, it's the uniform guidance. It used to be A21. You might have heard that language before, A21 certifications. Well, A21 is no longer the regulations that we have to abide by. We have uniform guidance as of December 2014. And the uniform guidance says, what it says concerning effort is that it requires that time distribution records must be maintained for all employees whose salary is paid in whole or in a part of by a federal fund or a matching fund. Payroll allocations among grant awards cannot be based just on budgeted distributions. So if we only had the e-hire process, that would be based on a budgeted distribution, not an actual after-the-fact certification. I just wanted to list some of the things that are important as far as uniform guidance is concerned. Charges to federal awards for salaries and wages must be based on records that accurately reflect work performed. And these records must be supported by, first, an internal control which provides reasonable assurance that the charges are accurate, allowable, and properly allocated. So internal controls, that's all the processes and policies we have related to HR and payroll. Also, the records must be incorporated into the official records of the non-federal entity. The non-federal entity is our institution. The records also must reasonably reflect the total activity for which the employee is being compensated. So effort report, a certification cannot just include the amount of time you work on the federal grant, but it must include 100% of the activity you are being compensated for. The records must also encompass both federally and any other activities that you worked on. So if you work a portion of your time on a federal grant, a portion of your time on some state appropriation, it has to include the whole thing, and we have to have written policies that say that this is what is required. Also, records must comply with whatever the accounting policies and procedures are here at our institution. So why do we certify? Why are we getting ready to implement certifications for Soybean Promotion Board funding? They are not federal funds, so why are we doing this? Well, there's been some changes in the board policies. We have a new agreement as of last year, and we have a new agreement this year, and there are a lot more accountabilities related to that new agreement than there were in the past. So one of the ways we are responding to that is by asking all people who are paid, all employees paid from Soybean Promotion Board funds to certify their effort. Now, the other reason we are making this change is because of audit findings related to the documentation of salaries paid on Soybean Promotion Board. So we had a couple of audits, and during one of the audits we were asked, well, this is the percent of time the ERS says that this person worked so many percent, 25% on wheat and 75% on soybean. And then the next question was, well, where's the documentation that shows that that person actually worked that? So it was not, we were really not able to provide that documentation. So now we have to, the effort certification is going to give us that documentation that we need to kind of confirm that the percentages that we are paying employees on the promotion board funds are indeed confirmed. Who certifies effort at Cooperative Extension Service? Well, for our appointed staff, which would be classified and non-classified employees, the employee would self-certify. For temporary workers who are paid from either federal funds or Soybean Promotion Board funds, the principal investigator will certify, or the principal investigator will designate a proxy to certify on their behalf. Now, it's in unusual circumstances that a proxy will be approved to certify on behalf of the PI, but it does happen, especially in some of our larger programs like SNAP and FNAP. Okay, if you are a responsible official that is certifying on behalf of a temporary employee, or in some cases you might be, as a supervisor, you might be set up as an alternate certifier for an employee. How do you know when it's okay to certify? If you're certifying on behalf of someone, you should have some type of suitable means to verify that that person actually did that work. And I'm going to add here too, even if you're certifying on behalf of yourself, if you're working on multiple projects, you need to have some kind of way of documenting that you actually work the time that you're certifying for that grant. So if you're working on multiple projects, you might need to keep log records and calendars of how you spent your time so that when you do certify every quarter, you feel confident that you've actually worked that time on that grant that you're certifying for. So some of the examples of suitable means of verification would include email correspondence, if you're a direct supervisor, contact from that employee's supervisor. And one of the cases we have in our SNAP area is where the financial manager for the SNAP program contacts the staff chair every quarter and confirms that that temporary employee actually worked the amount of time that the PI is certifying for. So all of these records can be used, notes from meetings, calendars, travel logs, and of course your timesheets, especially where our temporary staff is concerned, they have timesheet records. Those timesheet records don't really reflect the source of their funding, but those records are good if you can connect the time that they spent, that they're reporting on that timesheet, back to a grant or project. Those are also good records to keep if you're going to certify on behalf of a temporary staff or someone else. Which funds do we certify? So this is a way you can look at your e-hire. You can kind of look at it at a glance and know whether or not you have to certify your time and effort. We certify on funds that start with 14, funds that start with 21, funds that start with 22, 23, 24, and now that we're implementing soybean promotion boards, they start with 281. So if you have a copy of your e-hire, and if you don't have one, you can get one from Cedars. You can go to employee links, and you can go under applications and go to Cedars. You can get a copy of your e-hire, which I do highly recommend if you are someone who is being asked to certify your effort. It would be good for you to start that process by looking at your e-hire. Okay, so just to tell you a little bit about some of the funds that we certify, our 14 funds are our federal Smith-Lever funds. These are federal appropriated funds, and we have many of our faculty are paid from federal Smith-Lever funds about 50% of their time. We have them 50% on federal Smith-Lever, 50% on state appropriations. Now, some of them have grant funds, then we would reduce the percent of time that's on federal Smith-Lever and on state appropriation so that that time that they're spending on that grant would take up some of that percentage. We also have organizational salary savings that would also be in the 14,000 range. When do we certify effort? Well, starting in January 2016, we started certifying effort on a quarterly basis. Prior to that, we were doing it using paper forms, and we were doing it every 6 months. But effective January 2016, we started certifying on a quarterly basis, and they fall on the calendar quarter. So January through March, April through June, July through September, and October through December. Now, the next quarter that we certify will be for January through March. And this is the quarter where we're implementing certifying on soybean promotion board projects. We will have those certifications ready to be certified by the second week in May. You will get an email notification when those certifications are available for you to certify. Now, if you are a PI on a soybean promotion board grant or a federal grant, these reports will be available to you a little earlier. You'll get a FYI copy as soon as we open up the system for certification or even for pre-review. So by the beginning of May, you will be able to log in and actually see effort reports for anyone who works on your project. Okay, what effort certification is not? It is not how the payroll expense was distributed. That's basically what your e-hire is. If the payroll expense distribution does not match the actual effort that was performed on that grant, a payroll correction will need to be processed. In our electronic system, you can request changes. If you see your report, you're getting ready to certify it, and you say, well, no, I didn't work 10% on that grant, I worked 5%. Right in the electronic system, there's a little button you can push. You can click on Request Changes, and that will notify the proper people, and Cheryl will go over that in detail of how that notification gets back to us, and we can help you with making the change that needs to be changed on that effort report. Some of the red flags that auditors kind of look for. Late effort reports. What auditors tell us is that the farther we get from the time that work was actually performed, the less reliable an effort certification report is. So that was one of the rationales for changing from a twice-a-year system to a quarterly system, because we knew that the auditors were saying that even though it was allowable to do a semi-annual report, what they were telling us was that they considered them to be less reliable. So we changed to a quarterly report. And I know on campus they do a monthly report. We may eventually go to a monthly report, but right now we're doing quarterly. Other red flags: if the certifier does not have firsthand knowledge of the work performed or suitable means of verification that the work was performed. So if you're certifying, we kind of went over this already, make sure you have the proper records to verify that what you're certifying is actually correct. Anytime 90% or more effort is placed on a grant, that's kind of a question in the auditor's mind, because they're like, so you're saying that the only thing you do is work on this grant, and there are no other responsibilities you have when you get in this range of 90 to 100%. We do have some people, we have some FNEP staff, and we have some grants here that do support 100% of people's time, but it's not the norm. When no effort is placed on the grant, the question then from an auditor becomes, well, how did you get the work done? And there was no effort on it. So you just have to be ready. None of these things are necessarily bad as long as you have a good explanation and justification. Untimely payroll redistributions and corrections without the proper explanation and justification. Also, if there are a lot of recertification, you certified your effort in May for January through March, and then something came up later, that grant gets ready to end, and you see you have some money left, and money is left in salaries, and you're like, oh, I should have put more of my time on that grant, and you want to go back and do a correction. So that requires a recertification. Those are red flags. When the records do not match the certification, that's our payroll records, don't match the certification, that's a red flag. And also, if an effort on a proposal, if you submitted a grant proposal and the effort that you put in that proposal does not match what you certified, again, there could be a good explanation for it. All I'm saying is know that explanation, know that justification at the time that you make that confirmation. Okay, so I just want to share some of the audit results that kind of led us to the electronic effort reporting in Banner. We had an audit by the system, and we were audited for 3 years, 2012, 13, and 14. In 2012, we had a finding saying that we didn't have the written policies and procedures, overtime, and effort reporting that we needed. And they also sampled our reports, and over 30% of the reports were either not signed timely or we didn't have them at all. So those were the finding, and that was a pretty bad situation. 2013, we had policies and procedures by 2013, but they said they needed to be more specific. We needed more detailed procedures related to effort reporting. So we had to, adjust and update the policy that we had drafted and the procedures to go along with it. But we also had the same finding. Almost 30% of the forms were not signed, or they were not dated when they got signed. They did not have a date. So the auditors couldn't really say if they were timely or not. Additionally, we had several reports that didn't include 100% of the employees' time and effort. So one of the things about an audit, if you're auditing me on 2016, I don't really have the results of that audit until maybe March of 2017. It's really hard to adjust for an audit report that you didn't get until the last quarter of the year. So it really took a little while for us to get our act kind of cleaned up. So for 13, here's a little graph that shows the first 6 months, how many, that the percentage that was delinquent, the percentage that was on time, the second half. By 2014, we did clean up our act. There was no problems with our policies and procedures. And we had 3 reports that were late, and none of them were more than 5 days late. So we did that, and we accomplished that in the paper system. But we knew we could do a lot better. We knew that it was easy for reports to get lost because, you know, we were dealing with these paper copies. So that's what kind of led us down this road to electronic effort reporting. Some reminders here. The effort reports for the period of January through March will be available for certification in May, which is next month, which is next week. Employees paid on federal grants and employees paid on any portion of their salary on soybean promotion boards will certify their effort, or if you're a temporary employee, the PI will certify on your behalf. In some unusual circumstances, there may be a case where a report is certified, and after the report is certified, the PI has to post-review that report. So that report gets pre-reviewed by OSP, certified by the employee, and then post-reviewed by the PI, and then it comes up later that that report was incorrect. That record is locked. Payroll cannot make any adjustments to that record because that record is locked. And in order to get a record unlocked, there's a certain process that you have to follow. You have to, the PI would have to justify why there's a need to unlock the record, what happened, and why it needs to be corrected. The PI's justification has to be approved by their assistant or associate director. That's one of the executive team members would have to approve that. And as well, it has to be approved by Rick Cartwright. So, and then I would have to approve it in OSP. So we have several approvals that has to take place in order to unlock a record. So it's going to be, it's very important, and I'm going to stress on these, on the promotion board projects, the soybean promotion board projects, which really in the past, prior to this past year, didn't require the type of monitoring that we're now being required to do on those. I'm going to stress that you need to be looking at those every month, and Brenda Duggins is going to be helping with that. She'll be sending out notices at least every month, Brenda. She's going to be sending a notice to each PI on a monthly basis, and then it's going to tell you if you're over or under as any budget line item, okay? Because that's what we're required to do now for the promotion board. So she's going to help you stay on top of that salary line item so that you'll know ahead of time, and if you need to make any corrections before we certify, you can get those corrections done. Okay. Just want to share some of the questions we've been asked in the past when we did this training. Doesn't AIMS provide the same information? The answer to that is no. Although AIMS can provide support for effort reporting, it can be some of that suitable means of verification that we talked about. It is not the actual payroll records. So we are mandated to do effort reporting based on what the actual payroll records are. And so AIMS and payroll, they really don't talk to each other. You know, there's no interface there. So AIMS is good support. If you're certifying on behalf of someone else, that's good support to have, but that is not the payroll record. The other question we get is, how can I get a copy of my eHire 100? So right there on the screen, there's some steps there. If you go to the employee links under applications, go to CEDAR. Based on your own employee ID, your own login, you can see your e-hire. If your supervisor did not share a copy of your e-hire with you, you can go to CEDAR and you can get that information. That is a good place to start effort certification, the whole process. That's a good place to start it, because that's what's going to determine what the payroll expense actually has and what's actually put on your effort certification report. Okay, so Cheryl Baker's here from IT. She helped to implement this. She did all the IT part of this implementation, and she's going to tell you about the actual process. Cheryl?
Thanks, Sandra, and thanks for letting me join you here to go through this. I'm going to talk about the actual steps. Sandra talked about the why you're doing what you're doing, and I'm actually going to go through the actual steps, the process for actually doing the certification. Okay, and this is just talking about, this is our old effort report that she referred to before. It was a paper report, and you're familiar with that. And just going to talk a little bit about why we changed. As we talked about, this allows a better review process to increase accuracy, and the process allows reviews by OSP, the certifier, and the PI. Before the paper process, it was hard to get all those eyes for the review. It allows efficient monitoring and routing of the effort report. The disposition location of an effort report is available in real time. We're able to see, is it waiting for certification? Is it waiting for the post-review? We're able to see that in real time through the system. And it allows for electronic routing, no paper to move from location to location or office to office. It's all available online and in real time. Payroll corrections, effort reporting are processed more effectively. The payroll correction, if a payroll redistribution is submitted, once payroll begins that process, it does not allow for any certification until that's been updated in the record. So when you're certifying the most current information. It also, this allows us to be able to monitor the process and ensure the reporting is complete and digitally stored to prevent lost records. We're able to follow the status of it to make sure things are done on time, like Sandra was talking about, and to make sure that we've got a digital record of those. We don't have to worry about storage of paper or those getting lost. It also allows quick access for audit reviews, and so we can demonstrate this federal compliance and avoid audit findings in the future. The new effort reporting steps, there's 3 steps to this process. There's the pre-review, and that's prior to the certification period. As Sandra had spoke about before, once those records are out there and the pre-review process starts, there is an FYI copy that's available to the post-reviewer, which is the principal investigator. This is completed by OSP, the grant and contract analyst. For their review, they're looking at the budget and see if there's any flags that they could work on prior to it being available for certification. Once that period is done, then the certification process starts. And during this period, appointed employees will self-certify, and the PI's designee will certify for any temporary staff. Then the final step is the post-review. The post-review can be done at any time once an employee has done their self-certification. It's after the effort report is certified. The principal investigators will perform the post-review reports reflecting effort on their projects. So this gives another set of eyes to look it over, what the employee might be certifying for. And something to note is we do send out emails once that certification process, once those are certifications, the effort reports are available for certification. There are email notices that will go out to each employee that has an action to be performed for that. We send those out, I believe, every other day the first week, and then we send those out every day as reminders. And then we do the same thing for the post-review process. So we do have email reminders that provide some short instructions and a link so you can go right to the effort report. What we're going to do here is we're going to talk about just 8 different actions that you need to know how to do to perform your effort certification and your post-review. We're going to talk about getting the effort report and self-service. We're going to talk about self-certifying, self-certification. We're going to talk about how to submit change requests. If you see that your distribution needs to be changed, my effort doesn't match what my payroll record was, and I need to make changes, we're going to talk about the steps to do that. We're going to talk about entering comments. We're going to talk about printing new effort reports if you want a paper copy of it. We're going to discuss PIs and how PIs will certify for temps or terminated employees. We'll talk about how you can assign a proxy to certify and review on your behalf. And then we're going to talk about the post-review process. So that's what our goal is as we go through these. The first thing is getting to the effort report. The good thing is this process is in through our self-service banner. So if you've done requisitions before, you enter your time, it's in the same place. So you're going to have the same login. You're going to go to banner self-service through our employee links. You're going to click on employee services on the self-service page. And there's a new link down there. It's at the bottom. It's called effort certification, and you're just going to click on that link. A box is going to come up, a security warning, and you just want to select continue. And then we're ready to start the self-certification process. And once you click that continue button, it's going to open up and it's going to show you your effort report. If you're a self-certifier and you've got a record out there that you need to self-certify for, it's going to open up and it's going to show you those records that you need to self-certify and the ones you've done in the past. You just need to double click on the reporting period line that you need to certify for. The status will say awaiting certification. And the effort report consists of 2 sections, a sponsored and non-sponsored section. The sponsored activity is activity supported by funding outside the university. And the non-sponsored activity is all other activity, usually university funding. So sponsored activity, that's where your soybean promotion board funds are going to be. Any of your federal projects are going to be there. State, match funds, those are going to be down in the non-sponsored section. At the bottom of the effort report, there's going to be a couple buttons that I want you to take note of. There's a request change button and a certify button. Once you've reviewed your report, you've looked at your records and you feel that that's an accurate reflection of the time and effort that you put in on the project, you're going to click the certify button. Another box is going to pop up and it's going to have a certification statement, and it's basically saying that I've reviewed this and I believe it's an accurate reflection of the time and effort that I put in, and you just need to click I agree. And that's all you need to do a self-certification. So now we're going to talk about going in and doing a certification and a post-review for PIs, and it's a little different process because you got to go in a different way. So instead of being on the certify my effort, you're going to click on review or certify reports, which is going to be the second menu item there. It's going to bring up a form that says review or certify reports. You're going to click this advanced search drop-down button. And from there, you need to select the attribute, click the drop-down on the select attribute, and click on chart of accounts. The chart of accounts is a required field, and you have to put this in every time. Our chart of accounts is a capital Z, but if you don't remember what that is, there's an ellipse over here on the right. The 3 dots is called an ellipse. You're going to click on that, and it'll bring you up whatever the available selections are for, and that's true for any of the menu items for the drop-downs there. You're going to select the Z there and click on select. Once you've done that, you're going to hit the go button over here on the right side, and that's going to bring up all the certifications that are out there either in a FYI status for you, awaiting certification, or waiting for post-review. Down here at the bottom, you'll need to Select the item that you're wanting to either do a certification because you're the PI for a temp employee, or you're going to be doing a post review for them. Once again, you double click on the item that you're wanting to address. Again, you're going to review this, and if you believe this, the percentages of effort accurately reflect the person that you're certifying on behalf of, you want to click certify. And again, you'll have the pop-up that says certify, and if you agree with this, then you say I agree. So we've gone through the steps to certify, do a self-certification, and we've gone through the steps to certify if you're certifying on behalf of a temp employee or someone that was terminated. And now we're going to talk about what if you get to that effort report and you see that the distribution isn't accurate. I didn't really work 60-40, I work 50-50, and I need to make changes to make sure this is correct. Now we're going to talk about how you go about requesting changes. To request changes, you're going to have the effort report that you're addressing is going to be listed up there. And if you notice whether you're certifying for a temp employee or a terminated, or you're doing a self-certification and you see it needs to have changes made to it, you're going to click the Request Changes button at the bottom. That's going to bring up an email, and the email, we need to have those sent to effort_reporting at uaex.edu, and you're going to put that into the to box. We need you to CC the admin responsible for your EHIRE changes. So that would be the person that's responsible for submitting EHIREs for you. For myself, I think that would be Jan Sampson, but you want to make sure that we put a copy of a CC and we send that to them. We need to make sure that they're aware of the changes that need to be made. When the email pops up, it's going to put in your name in there, or the person that you're certifying for or trying to certify for, and it's going to include the period that it's that you're addressing. And then you need to put in the percentage or where you want to move it from, any kind of information in there that can help either the admin or sponsored programs address the changes that need to be made. And then you want to make sure that you send the email. So this doesn't happen automatically. The email does pop up for you with the default information in the subject, but you do need to enter the effort reporting address, add the CC on it to the admin, and then include the information that you need to have changed on your effort for that period, and then send the email. As we talked about, we always want to enter comments anytime we're requesting changes. If there's any kind of notes that you want to put on there, these comments stay with the effort report. It gives a good history of what actions were taken, why they were taken, and even up to the PI level, it allows for communication so that they even know that there was changes made to the initial distribution. To enter a comment, you're going to click Comments over on the left-hand menu, right over here. And that's going to bring up another screen. And then you just need to click Add Comments down here on the bottom right. If there's previous comments in there, it'll show those on there, and it'll have a date and time stamp on them. But usually if this is the first time in there and you're asking for changes, you're going to be entering a new comment. So you're just going to click Add Comment. You're going to type in your description and be as detailed as you can be, so that the information gets passed correctly, the correct actions can be taken, and we can get this updated, and you can finish certifying and complete the certification process. So you may even want to just copy the email that you previously sent and paste it in there. You can save you some time there. Once you've done that, you just need to click Save. And then we're going to talk about, before we go into the printing, we're just going to talk about that we've gone through if you're going to be certifying for yourself, how you go about doing that. We've talked about if you're going to be certifying on behalf of somebody else, if you're a PI, how do you get to those records? You have to go a different direction for that. But we showed how you can access those. And that same place where you go to certify for a temp or a terminated employee is the same place that you're going to go and do your post-review. So we're going to move on now. We're going to talk about how you can print your effort report. If you like your paper and you want to print a copy of your effort report, you're going to click on More Actions. There's a menu button up here at the top, and there's a print button there. And it will pop up into a PDF file that you'll be able to print from there, or you can save to your desktop. As we talked about before, that we do have the ability to assign proxies if you're unable to perform as actions on your own behalf. They do require OSP approval, and this approval will only be granted when the PI is going to be disengaged from the project for a prolonged period or for a large decentralized program like SNAP and EF and EP. So if it's going to be a short period, regular days off, that's one thing, but if you're going to be out of the country for a couple months or something like that, that might be something they would consider, but it's not something that we encourage. So if you do feel like you have a circumstance that would qualify for this, you need to contact OSP at the effort_reporting@uaex.edu website if you'd like to assign somebody as a proxy. If you assign somebody as a proxy, they will be able to do the following actions on your behalf. They will log in and they will assign themselves as working as a proxy for you. They're going to be able to certify for you. They'll be able to certify for temps, and they will be able to perform the post-review process. So these are not actions that you want to delegate unless you're actually not going to be able to do them and you've got prior approval for. If you are a proxy and you're working as a proxy for someone, you will have been pre-assigned and pre-set up for this. You're going to go to the proxy or super user menu item in the self-service. You're going to select the person that you're acting as a proxy for. If they've been set up for a proxy, they'll be in this drop-down menu here. You're going to select that, and then you're going to click Save. And then you're going to be acting as a proxy for whoever you've been assigned for. So those are the steps to actually go about doing the certification steps. The certification for your self-certification if you're acting on behalf of a terminated or a temporary employee, and the steps to show you how to go about going and doing a post-review. So we're going to open it up for any questions now.
We need to unmute.
Yeah, hold on. I'm getting there. Unmute all. Okay, everybody's unmuted.
One of the things that we didn't necessarily stress, but it does come up sometimes, how can you see your payroll detail? That detail is within the effort certification system, right there where it says certify my effort. If you look, one of the links is going to say payroll detail by pay period. And you can actually click on that, and you can see what your distribution was for every pay period and what those percentages were. And this has become very important, especially when we have grants. Every month of the calendar, we have grants that end. So if we had a grant that ended January 31st, and we're trying to make sure that you're trying to make sure that nobody was paid on your grant after January 31st, you would need to go to that detail to see what actually makes up those percentages that you see on that report. It's going to break it down pay period by pay period. So it's real good information in there, and it's right there at your fingertips. You don't have to go get it from ePrints or get it from somewhere else. It's right in the system.
And they can see this here too. So.
And Cheryl is kind of pointing that out right now on the screen. If you look, it says pay period
Summary.
I can't
Summary.
Pay period summary.
Pay period summary. If you click on that, it has a wealth of information about pay period by pay period, what those percentages were each pay period. And you can see clearly if somebody was supposed to come off, if you're a PI and somebody was supposed to come off of your grant February 28th, you can see if they were paid in March and they shouldn't have been. And that's the time you want to request that change. Okay? Questions?